When you have a quarterback in your CMO that can generate leads and throw the ball per se, to a CRO that knows how to take those leads and turn them into money, there's nothing more powerful in a startup than that. When you get to a place where it's Joe Montana to Jerry Rice, you're going to win.
Startups with Stu is a podcast for anyone living or wanting to live the startup life, either as a founder or a team member. Your host, Stuart Draper, was a 9-time Inc. 5000 honoree before age 40. This show dives deep into the exhilarating world of entrepreneurship with guests that are seeking advice from Stu for their startup or business owners that want to share their entrepreneurial journey. Listeners always walk away with actionable ideas of what to do to take their startup to the moon. Startup life can feel like a roller coaster ride. And with Startups with Stu, you're likely to turn your roller coaster ride into a rocket ship ride. Get ready to uncover the secrets to startup success from visionary founders and savvy investors who've transformed groundbreaking ideas into thriving ventures.
This episode is brought to you today by PodUp. PodUp.com is the leading all-in-one AI-powered podcasting software. If you've ever considered having a podcast, want to get started, go to podup.com and check it out. I produce my podcast, use a variety of tools and producers that help me get everything done that I'm doing. Podallies.com is the agency I choose. If you're interested in having a podcast, you don't want to do it yourself through podup.com, I highly recommend that you go check out podallies.com and schedule a strategy call with one of their production specialists. They will be able to help you and think through everything you need to before you get started on your journey as a podcaster.
Welcome to another episode of Startups with Stu, where we take your startup to the moon. Today with us, we have a legend in the sales space and entrepreneur extraordinaire through acquisitions, which is really cool. We'll talk about that later. Mr. Brandon Winter, the former CRO at Stukent.
Great to be here. Thank you.
You guys, this is like a brother to me. This guy right here, Brandon Winter, took a big risk on Stukent, took a bet on me early days, and helped us grow. Probably, I tell people, probably 200 of the first 300 universities that Stukent brought on as customers, Brandon was the key reason they came on board. So we're so thankful for him and what he did for Stukent. So we'll talk about that, but we're also going to talk about what he's doing with a startup he has called Fundraise Genius and other things that he's got going on in life now that he's post Stukent. So
Let's do it.
Yeah. Founders, one of the fun things about running your startup is you're going to get team members that come on board and they're there to watch you. They're choosing to work for a startup because they have ideas for their own startups, for things they would like to do down the road. And so you get to be a part of their journey towards entrepreneurship, and that's super cool. The founders of PayPal, early days, you had Elon Musk, Mike Thiel, I believe is his name. Oh no, Peter Thiel. He's the author of a book called 0 to 1. They have this cool thing that happened post PayPal called the PayPal Mafia. And you can go Google it. I highly recommend you take a minute and go check it out. Basically, the stories of all the original days people at PayPal have now gone on to do really big things with their own entrepreneurial journey. Other companies that came out of the PayPal original gangsters is like YouTube, LinkedIn, some really cool businesses came out of people that were employees early days at PayPal. So if you're not a founder yet and you're listening to the show, let this be an inspiration. You can be working for a startup and learning right now and preparing yourself for the day when you're ready to go and jump on your idea. So
Great advice.
So Brandon, let's tell the story. I want to hear it from your perspective too. How did you come into the game with Stukent?
So let's see, even back to when we first got introduced. So you were college roommates with my brother-in-law, Evan. And so we met pretty early on while we were in college. I think you initially recruited me to come work with you at Get Found First. Mm-hmm. And timing wasn't right. But fast forward, I worked for a few startups in Provo, was working in Target's supply chain, and you reached out to me and said, hey, I know you're living in Oregon at the time. We've got a pilot school at Oregon State University that's piloting our simulation for digital marketing. And I think you might be interested in hearing more what we're doing here. So you pitched me the idea. You asked if I would set up some other appointments with university professors in the area from Portland down to Eugene.
I kind of gave you like a sales pitch script.
Like a 3-sentence email. And I had the next day off, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. So I went and Google searched all the universities from Portland down to Eugene, started making phone calls to department chairs and just pitching, asking them, hey, are you teaching marketing? Do you cover anything on digital marketing? Because this was back in 2014, I think late 2013 is when he started. And most of them weren't even covering digital marketing, and these students were graduating with a 4-year degree, not having any exposure.
Yeah, it was so mind-blowing for us, but for everyone around us. Like the whole world was going, wait, business schools don't teach this stuff?
Yeah. So for me, in a 24-hour window, I booked 7 appointments with professors, and it was like, this is interesting. Like, people are wanting to hear what this simulation entails. They want to see it for themselves. And then it wasn't until we went to OSU. So we were sitting in the back of the classroom. The professor was getting ready to teach and introduce you. We were going to cover kind of the results of the simulation at the end of this semester. And they were loud. They weren't listening to the professors. It was loud in the hallway. And then you went and stood up and pulled up like the results of the simulation. And it was like, everybody got quiet. I remember a student going and closing the door, noisy in the hallway. And students started to say things like, I want to be a digital marketer now. Or like, this is the best class I've had here. And for me, it was like this light bulb moment of like, this is what education should be like.
Yeah.
That's when I knew.
That was when you knew. Well, for me, when I knew was when someone who wasn't yet an employee was willing to take the time to go and try and sell, and then successfully booked 7 appointments in 24 hours. My mind was blown, and I was like, yeah, I had one sales rep at the time and decided it's time to bring on a second one and see how he compares. And Brandon just crushed it. That was so cool. I was so excited. And like, I remember bringing a shirt to give to you at the end of the day if it had gone well. And I was like, yeah, he's getting the shirt today.
Well, the best thing was you gave me the shirt and a jacket, and you said, hey, listen, if you decide not to join us, just mail it back. I was like, okay, so we must have a pretty good budget here.
I was tongue-in-cheeking that, I think, but maybe not. Maybe it was taken very serious. I don't know.
We're the same size. So
I was like, yeah, I'll actually wear that if you're not gonna. So that was such a neat story of recruiting someone. So Brandon was currently doing supply chain for Target. ITs, it was really just like warehouse management for Target, but he wasn't in sales. Yet he came in and just crushed it. He had done sales jobs back in college. I knew that about him. And so I was excited to see what he could do, and he immediately came in and just made waves. So you worked remote. Did you stay at Target for a certain window of time?
So when we negotiated compensation, I wasn't too excited about it at first, and I asked if there's an opportunity for equity. And we talked stock options, and I decided to give up 5 months of my salary for my stock options. And so it was
these were things that like gave me such amazing respect and admiration for Brandon Early. He comes in, tries it without having a promise of a paycheck, and goes and crushes 7 demos. Then he says that he wants to negotiate pay with me versus just take what I originally offered, and says I'll make this kind of a sacrifice to get skin in the game. I was like, this is a guy I want to work with.
Well, it was mutual. And I think for me, I was working in this warehouse. It's 1.5 million square foot warehouse, 7 miles of conveyor belts,
My goodness.
tens of thousands of boxes. And I'm working on this tech startup on the side. So I was in the warehouse, like 14-hour days for 3 days a week, and then Stukent 4 days a week for the first month. And then I left.
That was when you
And
said,
it was
okay,
like,
I'm gonna
okay,
quit.
we're draining the bank accounts with our savings, like everything we had saved. It was like our livelihoods. And it was like, okay, this fall semester needs to pay off. So I think like from the get-go, it was kind of this all-in mentality that I felt from like everybody on the team. And I think in a lot of ways that led to the success of Stukent. Was like people were bought into something bigger than themselves.
They were bought into something bigger than themselves. Okay, well, I had other questions, but we got to go right there.
Okay.
So why do you think that people were bought into something bigger than themselves in early days at Stukent?
So the mission at Stukent, help educators, help students, help the world. I remember having that conversation with you about the mission and thinking, man, it's a little cheesy and a little ambitious, and you stuck to your guns. And what I found was that as I started to have conversations with digital marketing professors, was, man, these guys were almost recreating the course every semester and using blog posts. And then like the next semester, like that link was not working and not functional. And it was like, they were just scraping by. And so for me, it was really clear, like we are helping them. Students, because they're going through this specific course, they're landing jobs and they're going to go and contribute to society. So for me, it was like, okay, that's a mission that is actually being fulfilled. It's not just something that's like posted on the wall. And I think not just to be a part of something like that, but to actually contribute is where a lot of the fulfillment comes, for us, and then for all of those that we were able to bring in and be a part of the ride.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of takeaways from what you just shared, Brandon. Like the mission isn't just something on the wall. It's something we talk about. It's something we work to fulfill, and we celebrate when it gets fulfilled. Yeah. We're going on Slack and recognizing the wins and pointing out that this professor just told us that their student just got an internship at Dell, or whatever it is. Like that was fun early days, proving that the mission was being fulfilled. But then it was something that people felt like they could be a part of contributing to it.
Totally.
Not just, oh, the company does that. Like, no, I do that.
Yep.
I'm finding the professors and teaching them that they can use this tool, and this will happen for them and their students. And like that can contribute. When you're building a founding team, you need to find people who get excited about your mission and then want to contribute and actually lift where they stand and be a part of the results that are going to come.
Totally.
It's easy to find people that want to make money from a job. Everyone needs it. Literally everyone on the planet has to find a way to make money and put food on the table. Yeah. You need people that want that, but they only want it when they know that they earned it.
Yeah. We got pretty lucky. I think another thing that I pushed for that we didn't get was leaving Southeast Idaho. Like do you remember having discussions about like, what if we went to Utah? What if we went to like Southern California and
St. George? Yeah, we talked about all those.
And so there's something unique about starting in Rexburg, Idaho, where we had like this gem with a university right here. And we made relationships with professors in the marketing department, and they fed us their best students. And then even outside of the marketing department, I mean, we had like geology majors. We had other majors they just came in and they were just hungry and they wanted it. And I think that was a big contribution to Stukent's early success from a sales standpoint.
Yeah.
Just young talent, young, hungry talent.
Early days, you don't get very many people that are asking to come be a part of what you're doing. You have to sell them on why they should be excited about coming to be a part of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so you got to be excited, and that's really important. But you got to not only do that, but be able to get them excited. And then something happens eventually with your startup where people start wanting to be a part of what you're doing because they see and feel the energy that's coming from your little corner of the world. And that was really exciting to have that shift and have professors be telling students, like, if you can get in on what Stukent's doing, it's really exciting. You should go try that. Like that was a cool shift for us, and I think an important one. Which leads me to one other key takeaway I found in growing a startup that I think Brandon can relate to, and it'll lead to my next question for you, Brandon. When you start your recruiting people that are willing to come and work for you. Like you're finding people that are like, that you can sell on the idea of coming to work for you. And then you need to get to a place where people can sell you, and you get to be picky now on what talent you're letting into your company. Mm-hmm. And you need to be picky. You need to mature as a business into people that are like better than you, smarter than you, know more than you, can do better than you. Getting Brandon on board, like I stepped in on like maybe 3 or 4 sales pitches before Brandon was just selling on his own. And like getting to that place where Brandon was trained and selling, and I didn't have to worry about that, and I knew it was just going to keep happening. Oh my gosh, like that was such a win for our business. So Brandon, like you come in, you go sell 200 to 300 accounts. And in doing that, I loved it because it was like you were proving to the rest of anyone else in the world that it could be done. Yeah. And it made it so when you recruited people, you could train them up and they could go do the same. And you were doing it from a place of like, I've been here and I've been in your seat. I know what it feels like. This is what you got to do, right? But like, how did you build the right team and sales culture within the organization?
Yeah, so came in, I would say it was almost probably 3.5 years, I was a player coach. So I had my own territory that I was specifically doing all the initial outreach for, booking my own demos, closing my own deals, and like filling my pipe while also teaching others to do the same. And that was like another story in and of itself.
Yeah, we got to
try to move away from that.
No, I don't want to derail you. I want to hit pause here because I love this story. Okay, so Brandon mentioned player coach. My recommendation for founders is that they have player coaches for all of the business. What a player coach is they are eliminating middle management in your business in the early days. Mm-hmm. So it's you as the CEO and your team of performers, period. There's no other like people that manage the performers. That's a later stage thing in a business. And the quicker you can mature your business into it, the better. When I think about that, you said 3.5 years you did that. Is that right? About right? Yeah. Okay. So let's see. We did $100,000 in year 1. We did $500,000 in year 2. We did $1 million in year 3, and we were tracking to $2 million in year 4. Yeah. So somewhere between $1 million and $2 million in annual sales is when our sales leader finally got the business to a place where we decided, let's let him just coach. No more no more player side. You're just a coach now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was right. That a little too long? Do you think we waited too long?
I mean, it did. It felt that way for me, but I mean, it worked out in the end. So
it probably was too long. I'm not here to say it's right. I was right.
Yeah, it was too long. And I think it's also like I wasn't compensated on their performance. It was salary and my personal commission. So it was
period.
Until I moved into the coach role. And so it's just like those things where you've got to figure out like, what can the business afford to do? And are there people on the team that are willing to make sacrifices early on for like the long game? I think all of this came down to us being able to be like patient
and have a vision that the long game was a good long game.
Yeah. And so early days, it was like we hired some stay-at-home moms that were our SDRs. We call them course specialists. And then we started to have course consultants that were our account executives. And I think it was about finding folks that first could come in and hunt. And then it's a different skill set to be able to like pitch and consult and close. And so there were some that stayed in more of the BDR, SDR role a lot longer than they wanted, and others that transitioned straight to like an AE role like pretty early on, or even directly into that because of what we could see and how much time we could actually spend coaching and helping them in those early days. So it came down to how much time we could really spend with each of them.
So how did you choose the good ones? Because I don't think you missed a lot, like on people that we went, oh, darn, they're not going to work out. Or was the business and product market fit in such a place that it could work out for a lot of people?
I think it lended itself well to different personality types than you would typically see in an account executive role. So we weren't out there like at the professor's door, like in person. So there were a lot of folks that were probably more comfortable doing like a demo pitch with a slide deck and like a brief walkthrough of our platform behind a computer versus in person. And I think in a lot of ways that helped us scale too, without the travel expenses and time and people that maybe were a better fit for that style of sell.
Yeah.
But also like professors, this like audience in particular, their lives are spent with students, and most of what we were hiring were students. And so I think in a lot of ways they were hearing from their own students, if you will, like, this is a product that I would learn a lot from if I were in your class and taking this course. And so it was just an easy way to kind of pitch to our target audience.
Mm-hmm. And they were coming from a place of a warm lead from the website usually.
Yeah, our marketing team was phenomenal. Between that and then also word of mouth, I mean, it was spreading between professors. We were really solving a need for like an audience that was hurting and in need of help. So I think that also played to our advantage.
Yeah. When you have a quarterback in your CMO that can generate leads and throw the ball per se, to a CRO that knows how to take those leads and turn them into money, like there's nothing more powerful in a startup than that. When you get to a place where it's Joe Montana to Jerry Rice, you're going to win. And it takes more. It takes the O-line. It takes everyone on the team. But those two positions are so critical for high growth SaaS businesses. You need leads and you need good people to close them.
We had a pretty frugal mindset, if you will, like for a lot of years, even after we could probably afford to do some things differently. Like I remember our office space was primarily a warehouse. And it's like
we literally moved from one warehouse, work from home, to one warehouse to another warehouse, and then into a real office.
I mean, no heating and AC. It was hot in the summers, like running a sweatshop for guys, and then freezing cold winters here in Southeast Idaho. And like, it was great for spike ball to play in that warehouse. But like, I think when we got to a place of maybe 50-ish employees and there was only one bathroom, I don't know if you want to share this, but do you remember we had
to get a porta potty?
We threw a porta potty into the warehouse so that we had somewhere else to go to the bathroom. Like, they were just like a lot of things.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Or like we didn't have desks.
That's gold for this episode. This has to be one of my shorts, okay, for the YouTube Reels. Like, we literally got to a place where the business was outgrowing the space. The only bathroom was a shared men's and women's. And then we threw in one of the back bays of the warehouse a second bathroom, which was a porta potty. And then we told the landlord, hey, if you build a second bathroom and we can take out the porta potty, we'll stay a little longer.
Yeah. And there were recruiting blitzes where we knew 10, 15, 20 interns were coming in for like a new semester for sales, and we didn't have desks and chairs. So I remember we went to like Craigslist or I don't even know if Facebook Marketplace was there at the time. And for like $300, we found like some sales office that had gone out of business or they moved. And we had a bunch of desks and chairs and some couch that stuck around for several years that probably shouldn't have, but for like $300. So, I mean, it's just like we were scrappy in a lot of ways. And when it came to travel, Motel 6s, dollar menu at the fast food places, like very different than the posh experience they have with the Divvy cards at Stukent today. Very different days.
Very different. They all get their own hotel rooms now.
Yeah, we had to share.
Those were good times though, okay? Don't act like that was a sacrifice. We enjoyed that Singapore trip, okay?
Yes.
Brandon and I showed up in Singapore. And
Okay, taking a quick break from the episode. Sorry to interrupt, but I have to take a second and thank the great team at Pod Allies that helps me produce this podcast. Startups with Stu is not an easy undertaking. It takes a lot of work and team power to get this thing done. So the team I use for my podcast, podallies.com, go check them out. If you are considering a podcast, if you've thought you have a dream for a show and you want to go make it happen, Go to podallies.com and book a strategy call today. I promise you won't regret it. Speaking of the show or shows, let's get back to Startups with Stu in this episode. Forgive my interruption, but if you're interested, go check out podallies.com.
Do I need to share this story? Is this relevant? It's good. I think it shares the frugality stuff, but in a positive light and funny way. But like Brandon would literally take the pillows and throw them in the middle of the bed and be like, "Look, this is the line."
Because we couldn't even get one with 2 beds.
I thought the hotel room had queen options, but the only option was a shared king bed.
Yeah, let's cut this one from that episode.
We were globetrotters too. Like that was a fun part of the gig, was getting to go and hustle around the world to try to find more schools. I mean, over the last decade, we helped over 1 million students, and we did it in over 80 countries.
That's wild.
And it was so fun to get to be a part of those building years and doing some of those things that HR departments would shut down, you know. And Brandon definitely would have turned me into an HR if there was one, probably a few times. But we just, like, as we sit here and reminisce and maybe start boring our listeners, I can't help but just like have a lot of fun, good memories that make me feel really good about the life we lived from 30 to 40 years old, basically. Those were good times.
Yep. Young hustlers with young families, just figuring things out. Yeah.
So let's talk about the young families, young hustler stuff. Like we went and played hard and worked hard. Mm-hmm. What were some of the fun play hard things that we did?
I mean, the semi-annual retreats to Island Park were always great. Snowmobiling in the winter, boating with families in the summer. Went to a lot of sporting events.
Yeah. So with business trips, we would always try to find there's no pro sports in Idaho. So whenever we were on a business trip, it was what pro sport can we go check out here? Great
Seahawks game. I remember Houston Astros when we acquired Real World Classroom from Brian Bean. So yeah, just a lot of like cool trips that are definitely memorable experiences for me.
Yeah, no, those were really good times. And I think important times for our business. Yeah. I think they were a big part of what led to a really positive, happy culture. It was like, hey, we're in the trenches now and we're fighting. And sometimes it feels like we have to fight each other as much as we have to fight the world. But we got each other's backs like a brother or sister does, because you know, we've been to play on the boat. We've been to the snowmobile trips and spent time together as families over dinner, not just in the workplace.
Yeah. I mean, most of what we think about and remember are like those good times, but like the majority of the time was spent in the trenches, behind the computers, in the Stratco meetings each week.
Strategy Council, by the way, we called it, shortened it to Stratco. That was our executive meetings.
And those were sometimes intense. Sometimes they were boring, but I think they were important. And when we got outside of when we took the time to get outside the office is when we reminded ourselves how much we enjoy being around each other. And I think it also allowed us to kind of step back and get more clarity, so that we had kind of confidence going into the new year or new semester or whatever that was.
The growth was awesome. If you look at Stukent's growth, that trajectory, the up and to the right all the time on almost any chart you look at, like we were really blessed that way. But it doesn't mean there weren't really hard times. So what were some of the really hard times for you? I got thick skin.
Let's see. You talk about the up and to the right. That reminds me, but maybe 2 things. I got 2 things.
Hit us. Hit it. Give us the good stuff. The hard stuff.
We were growing at an incredible pace, like Inc. 5000 pace, year after year after year. I think the hard thing for me was sometimes it felt like, hey Brandon, that wasn't enough. Like you'd come to me and say, like, we need more. Mm-hmm. We need more. Like never enough. And that competitive urgency that you had, I think, was incredibly important for us. It was just hard at sometimes.
Absolutely hard. Like, hard for me to give it to you. Yeah. Not just so. I appreciate you saying that, and I apologize because I was hard on you. But it always from my heart really came from a place of love.
Yeah.
Never from a place of like either do this or you're not going to be my friend, or this won't work out. Like it was never like that. And I don't know if very many other founders will relate to me with this, but I hope they do. One, if you take money from investors, hell or high water, you help them get their money back and then some. You do whatever it takes to make that happen.
Yeah.
And like I felt I owed money back to Brandon himself, who had taken a big risk up front on the business and worked for free for 5 months in exchange for equity. I owed your brother-in-law,
Two brother-in-laws,
a second brother-in-law,
yes,
and your father-in-law,
yeah,
who were early stage angel investors in the business.
Yep.
And so I wanted to get them a return, and I wanted it to be a good return. And what I found was that was one of my greatest motivators was not my own equity and what it was going to turn into, but what I needed to do for the people that had taken an early bet on me. And it motivated me to like a place of driving people maybe harder than I should have sometimes. I apologize to Travis on my episode with him. So here I am apologizing to you.
No,
okay.
I think in a lot of ways, our approaches were very complementary. Like I think you were able to see and articulate things in a certain way, and I was able to do the same. And in some ways, maybe you erred more on advocate for business finances, investors like you should. And I was maybe more on our team.
Advocating for the team and the customer.
Yeah. And so I think
the company has to do well for all of them.
Totally. Yep. And so in so many ways, like the way that we worked together is what made it feel so like it felt right. So, and communication wise, I felt like sometimes maybe the way things were communicated, I could pick up like what your intent was. And so for me, like I had thick skin and it was good. For some people, it was a little harder, right? So you just had to pick them back up and help them keep going.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one of the things that drove me was I felt like I had been gifted by God a hand of cards to play that was aces. And it was like, don't screw this up. Like you've been given a lot, where much is given, much is required. So go and do well for everyone here. And that was, I think, an aha moment for me in my life when I realized like we were really doing something that could change the world, that could change education, that we were really just in Little Rexburg, Idaho, going to change education. And we were going to help a lot of students, millions of them, and help a lot of people buy their first home. And we never had to do a layoff in all those years. So, okay. So you had two things you said that were hard.
Communication was the second one, probably. Yes.
The communication's the second one. Okay. So we've got enough there.
We're good. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I know you have thick skin, but that's good.
Let's air it out, Brandon. It's awesome. I think that the things that we learned from going through that much life together, you need to remember that the people you choose to go work with they become a big part of your life if you spend a decade of your life with them. You spend 8 hours every day at least in the office, and that's a lot of your life.
Yeah, and Slack and email never goes away. So I mean, it's like you're all in all the time. It felt that way, at least to me, and I always felt like this was my business just as much as yours. Like I felt a sense of ownership, like to deliver to our team, to our customers. So. And I think it's because of the way that you led. So
cool. So Stukent has core values.
We do.
Did you enjoy the core values? Did you feel like they were helpful, important for the business?
Yeah. So for me, I heard your episode with Trevor already, so kind of cheat there. But like for me, the mission, the core values, like I love that stuff. I eat it up because I think we need to be reminded like who we're trying to become in the process. And growth, winning,
humility,
good humor. Like those were things that were like boxes to check when we think about who's coming to join us, like who we're going to be spending time with. And as a business owner now working primarily by myself, like I realized how much I enjoyed and needed people like that around me, because you're not always going to be at your best. Neither are they, but usually on a bad day for you, you've got someone else to kind of pick you up, or vice versa. And I think it was a good filter for us, and also just a constant reminder of like who we're striving to become. I love that stuff. I also loved, like, we did a lot of sales competitions that were theme based. I remember a team member brought the idea of the astronaut first, and we threw it on a t-shirt, and it was kind of like, why are we, as like a simulation textbook, kind of, why do we have an astronaut on our t-shirt?
Because we're going to the moon, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
There were themes that just kept coming out, huh?
Conquer 500 was a spinoff of Conquer 100 with the Iron Cowboy, and it was like a summer never to forget, where the sales team was all in on going after 500 deals, and it was something greater than we'd ever done or thought we could accomplish. And it's just like those big, hairy, audacious goals that, like, it got you excited to get up and go make things happen.
Yeah. And when you have people that want to go get on board and do it with you, like, the motivation, the accountability is so strong, isn't it?
Totally.
One of the years you guys chose this was a cool thing that Brandon did as a leader. Brandon is a great business leader. And one of the things that he did of his own accord was create a different team theme for each year, the sales team. And one of them was with the buffalo, right? Yeah. Into the storm.
Yeah, bison into the storm. Yeah.
So the year starts, they're going to go into the storm with the bison, and whatever that storm may be, they're going into it. And the sales team needs to have that kind of attitude. They're ready to go to battle, right? And I love that. If you don't know the story, they say that the buffalo faces the storm and tries to walk into it, versus a cow sticks his butt at it and turns away from it. So that was the year, like, what you were going to have as your theme for the year. Mm-hmm. And then true, like, life storms hit.
Yeah.
Right. Tell me about that.
So that was the summer that Levi, one of our sales leaders, found out he had cancer. And I remember when I got the news, it was like one of these step back and realize, like, when you're confronted with death, like, the little things just don't matter, right? Those petty things kind of go away, and you think more holistically about, like, the time that you have. And so it was a time for our entire team to kind of step back and say, like, if we're here and we're working and we're away from our families, like, we need to be giving it everything we have here. And when we go home, like, our families are not getting what's left of us, they're getting the best of us. So when we go home, it's the same thing. Like, we're all in with our families. And so I think, the balancing act, that's never going to be, like, the same time wise, but yeah, it was a time where our team just, like, really came together. I remember a lot of buzzed heads in support of Levi. We didn't have to do that. We already have
we were already all on board
from the 8 years of Stukent. But yeah, it was just like, when you have challenges, it kind of molds you and helps with that growth in your journey. And we were fortunate to have someone like him that battled it, overcame it. He has an incredible family, and I mean, he's like like a true inspiration to all, like, to me, to all of us. So I think having people like that in your lives is really important. It's the relationships that I think we developed through those years that were most meaningful. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Well, one of the things, let's shift gears. I love Levi, and I'm so glad that he's still a part of Stukent today. And for, I know he loves you, Brandon, and is so grateful for the mentorship you gave him. So let's shift gears, though, now into what you're doing now. Like, what's next? I love that you have a growth mentality. You have continued to make more money every year since the time you walked away from Target. Basically every year of your life, you found a way to grow and make more money, right?
Yeah. And
that is such a neat thing for me, and an inspiration for me. You keep growing. And so you've found a cool acquisition. How did you come about finding the Fundraise Genius acquisition?
Yeah, so at the time, I'd been thinking about some different spaces I could enter, businesses I could buy or be a part of. And I just told a few people, I was like, hey, listen, I'm looking for something specifically in these spaces or that lend itself well to like my skill set. And one friend said he found this opportunity on Biz Buy Sell, which is like where most things go to die. And you can waste a lot of time there. Anyway, I had one call with these two co-founders, music educators. They built a platform that helped solve a need in the fundraising space for high school bands, choirs, and orchestras. So it's like a donation-based online fundraising platform. It's kind of like a GoFundMe for schools. And in my first call, I knew immediately, like, I know this space. They're solving a real problem, and it's reoccurring. It can be scaled from anywhere. And these guys, they solved the problem and built the system. They just didn't want to scale the business. So for me, it was the perfect opportunity to come and buy them out and take it from there. So that was kind of the genesis.
Okay.
Yeah, that was 18 months ago.
And how much has it grown since you acquired it?
It's growing. So it's growing. What's interesting is when I left Stukent, I got into land development. It's 3 years this March. It'll be 3 years since I left Stukent. And I'm on my third subdivision with a partner, my wife and I and another couple. And that was project-based. It's not like a day in, day out grind. And so Fundraise Genius has been kind of, I would say I've put in part-time hours the last 18 months. And after talking to you and a few other people, it's like, man, if I really want this to be something, I need to be all in on it. And so it's been growing with me part-time. We just updated the platform and the website to reflect we're transitioning beyond just the walls of like high school performing arts. It's all schools, all nonprofits, anyone that needs help in their sports program, their art program, or a young nonprofit that's looking to fundraise, we can help them. Mm-hmm. And so got a couple of part-time people now, and we're scaling up, and we're going from it was a 2x mentality last year. This year, it's like 10x mentality. Like, how do we go literally 10x this in 12 months?
Love it. That's one of the things that we talked about a lot at Stukent, right?
Yeah.
The 10x mentality of like, hey, if we're at $1 million in annual sales right now, what's it going to take to get to 10 million?
Yeah.
And that's a good mentality. I wanted to point out to founders something else that Brandon said. He said that Fundraise Genius is basically GoFundMe, but for schools. Mm-hmm. And it's good for you to quickly be able to articulate what your business is and what it does, who it helps. And so to find a parallel like that, like a lot of people are familiar, GoFundMe is kind of a household name. So if you can find a household name type of service or business that you are like, then you can use it as a descriptor for the rest of what you do. So I love that. And I think it's important to think of your business that way. This is a little bit of a tangent, but a fun one. At Stukent, we always talked about how what Under Armour was to Nike and Adidas, that's what Stukent is to Pearson and McGraw-Hill. And we did that to articulate a vision and to articulate what was possible. Here we were, little $1 million business in Rexburg, Idaho, saying we can go beat the $1 billion companies like Pearson and McGraw-Hill. And if Under Armour can do it, and our numbers were better than Under Armour's numbers, our first 5 years in business at Stukent, compared to Under Armour's first 5 years of business, right? Like, then, hey, that's a possibility for us. We could be the Under Armour for the education space, the new guy on the block. Sure, Under Armour's had its struggles. Sure, its stocks had troubles, whatever. Those guys have made a name for themselves, a global brand, and made billions. And so if you're the third place guy in a market like Under Armour's, you're okay. It's okay, right? So that's a key takeaway for me from our time at Stukent. Don't you think that helped give us a different vision?
It did. Yeah, we have to constantly be thinking bigger. I wouldn't imagine that Stukent is where it is today. Like it slowly evolves, like how big you can become. Early days, it was like, let's just keep the lights on, like we've got a responsibility to our team, but slowly you begin to believe in yourself more.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, One of the things that for me was kind of a spicy topic for our time working together was negotiating your compensation.
Well, because it was every year.
Every year,
Usually you and Mike had to sit down, you and the CFO had to sit down with me and say, now let's slow down your comp a little bit here and restructure things. We can't keep the same thing.
No, it wasn't. It was never coming from a place of like trying to be evil or not give Brandon the growth that he wanted. Brandon's an ambitious dude, and he had big personal goals, and he wanted to always be growing year over year. And then we wanted him to grow year over year because the business was growing year over year. The struggle was helping not just Brandon, but a lot of team members understand that just because the business 5Xs doesn't mean everyone's salary is 5X, right? Or even 1X, or even 20%, right? Even 10% is a lot in salary growth, even when a business is scaling and growing super fast. And the reason is, in order to support the growth, you need more people to help. And so that means you have to hire someone. And when you hire one person, they take out the raise potential of like 7 people. 7 people's opportunity to make more money comes from having to hire one new person or something like that. I don't know the exact numbers. It all depends, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to communicate here, which is like you want to go and take care of your team members that helped you get the growth. And there's 2 ways you take care of them. One is hire help so they don't have to kill themselves working 80-hour work weeks. The downside of hiring the people is it takes away from your ability to give the raises that you want. So it's a catch-22. Which one do you do more of? Make them keep working hard, give bigger, better raises, or hire more help and give them a smaller raise? And so it's always a negotiation and struggle. You want a sales leader who wants to negotiate his compensation and is striving to get the most he can. Why? Because if he's that type of personality, he knows what it takes to go and ask customers for their money and how to close deals and make stuff happen. You don't want someone who's a pushover. And so sometimes for me, I would get really frustrated in those conversations. And it was good to have Mike as a good middle ground, middle mind, and third party view on how I viewed things, how you viewed things, on what was a fair compensation model for you.
Yeah. And I would say too, it was not just my personal comp, but it's like I was responsible for my team. It's like, how do I help everybody within the revenue team make as much as possible as they can provide for their families? Like a lot of the one-on-ones that I did, it wasn't just like, here's how things are going with sales numbers. It was like, tell me what's going on with your life. Like, tell me what you're working towards. And I knew what those personal goals were, and I knew the time and effort they were putting in. And it's like, I want to help you get there. Let's help you get there. So it was like fighting for a revenue team.
Dude, I would bet that the first 10 people you hired also were all first-time home buyers because of their job opportunity at Stukent.
Yeah.
And maybe even more than that. Definitely over time, the total number is way greater than 10. Yeah. But that's something that as a founder, you get to be really proud of, is that you're helping provide the types of jobs that lead people into better careers, and that not all of them stay with you forever. He was going to find a way to make more and keep growing at the kind of rate he wanted to grow and live the life he aimed to lead the day he started working at Stukent. And so I was sad to see him go because I loved my time and working with him, and we worked well together, but also just like so happy for him. So happy for you, buddy.
Thank you.
FundraiseGenius.com. Go check it out, and don't waste this new knowledge you have. Go and apply this stuff. Take your startup to the moon. Keep listening to Startups with Stu. Share it with a friend or family. This episode is one that I think if you can't glean some golden nuggets to take back to your startup, then startups may not be for you. All right. That's a wrap. Thanks for being with us today, Brandon. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Stu.
Hey, founders, entrepreneurs, investors, and other listeners of Startups with Stu. Thank you. thank you for listening to this episode today. As I mentioned at the beginning, as I mentioned in the middle, I want to take a second again at the end and say, if you haven't yet and you're considering a podcast, go check out podallies.com. They sure help me a lot with the show. And I am so grateful for all that they do to help me accomplish Startups with Stu and get it out to the world so we can help more founders and take your startup to the moon. Go check out podallies.com and podup.com if you're interested in podcasting at any level.
Thanks for joining me on Startups with Stu. We have big goals to help millions of entrepreneurs. If you enjoyed this show, please take a minute to share it with someone else that needs to hear it, or leave a review. Remember, success is within reach for those who dare to dream big and take action. Until next time, keep pushing forward on your entrepreneurial journey.